Everyone. This is Anne from Fiber, Floss, and Fiction, and it has been a hot minute, I know. 18 months later, I'm back. It's been a little bit crazy, but I am going to try to restart my podcast going forward and have a slightly different focus. There'll still be lots of talk about crafts, my knitting, my new crochet thing, spinning, books I'm reading, and cross stitch. But let's do a quick life catch up for all the things that have happened over the last 18 months. And without going into a lot of detail, just where I've been. So today is August the 16th, 2022. And I am coming to you from the mountains of New Mexico, up in the northern part near the Colorado border. I almost said Canadian border, which is not true. Anyway, yeah, so back in the end of March, beginning of April of 2021, some of you might know, I got very sick, and it was not COVID. Just going to say that, it was not COVID. After about 3 weeks at home, just being very sick and kind of getting sicker, my doctor thought to get some blood work, and they admitted me that same day, and I was in the hospital for 3 days. And then kind of a long recovery at home. They're still actually not sure what happened. I think they think it was some weird issue with my autoimmune disease problems, that my immune system just went totally off the rails. I was septic. I had lots of antibiotics. It kicked my butt. And it took me a while to get over that, when obviously I was not going to be filming. And after that, with all of the things that have happened in the world with COVID and just supply chain issues and all kinds of stuff, I made the decision that I would go ahead and close my Woolly Wonka Fibers business. So I am no longer in the dyeing and designing world. Spent several months kind of getting all that stuff tidied up, closing out inventory, finished shipping some open orders to my stockist clients, and all the paperwork that comes with that. And then by the end of 2021 and into 2022, I decided to go back into the Muggle workforce, and so did lots of applications, sent resumes, all that good stuff. So as of May, I have been working for the large healthcare organization that I was doing contract work for previously, and really enjoying that, working in their marketing department. And I'm 100% remote, which is great because I can still work at home and I don't have to go out and be exposed to germs and all that good stuff. But it's also meant that I've had some changes in my schedule and how I have time to do things. But I am hoping going forward that I will be able to look at doing a more regular podcast. I don't want to commit to saying I'm going to necessarily film like one big one once a month or every other week or even once a week or whatever. I just want to see how that schedule is going to work and kind of see what I can do and what I have time for. But I would like to start visiting with you all again on a more regular basis. And so hopefully this will be the first of my reboot of Fiber, Floss, and Fiction. So if you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. I appreciate that. I missed all you guys. It will be great to engage with you again and hear what you've been up to over the last year and a half. If you're a new viewer, know that this is a little bit different than my usual format, just because I don't usually spend 5 minutes talking about life things that have happened over the last 18 months. But yeah, so going forward, we're going to have a similar format where I'm going to talk about yarny things, book things, and stitching things. I will put timestamps in for each of those sections, and if I'm feeling spicy, I'll add some little dividers so you guys can skim through and pick the parts that you are interested in hearing about. I will say that if you're here for cross stitch, there will definitely be that, but just know that I have become more of a monogamous stitcher. And so you're gonna get to slog through the end of an epic project with me over the next couple of months. So just be prepared that there will not be a lot of exciting podcast fodder, but it will at least be relatively interesting, I'm hoping. So having gotten all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and we're gonna jump into talking about the knitting that I've done recently. I'm definitely not going back to talk to you guys about the last year and a half worth of projects and books and stuff like that. So let's just go forward and pretend we are starting new and fresh, because it certainly feels like a new beginning. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about knitting now. So knitting, let's go on and talk about that. Well, this will actually be knitting, crocheting, and spinning all wrapped together. So we'll call it the yarn section. All right. I have been working on several different projects. The first of which I'm going to show you is a fun project that I've been working on using some minis from a summer advent type box that my husband got me for my birthday this year. And there's one main color, and then there's a whole series of minis that are used in this project. The yarn is from a company called Rebel Woolworks, and I will put links to everything I can link below. I don't think, after reading some things on social media, I don't think she's dying anymore after some bad hacker issues and just all kinds of stuff. Anyway, this is the main color. It is on her sock yarn, the Sahali sock yarn base. None of these colorways have names to them because they're all part of the Summer Advent box that she put together. But that is the main color. And I'm knitting a pattern called Softly Spoken by Janina Kallio of Woolenberry. And it's it will be a long rectangular stole. And you can see that I started with the main color down here. This will be the matching, there'll be a matching section at the other end. And then I'm using the 20-gram minis that came with the kit. So I've finished 1, 2, and 3. And I'm just starting on this top kind of slate gray blue color, I guess I'd call it. So there'll be this color, and then one more contrast color at the top, and then it will finish off with the main color, the hand paint. I am knitting this on size 6 needles. It's not a difficult lace pattern, even though it looks kind of frothy and difficult. It's really not. And of course, it doesn't look like much since it has not been blocked yet. The pattern is written out. There's no charts for this, and you're just repeating the same lace pattern in each of these sections. The pattern calls for 11 repeats of the lace pattern, and I did not have quite enough yarn. It's a slightly heavier yarn than what the sample was knit with. So I've only gotten 10 repeats out, but I'm not unhappy with it. I think it looks fine. The other thing I did differently for this one, the original pattern has you start with a temporary cast on. And I don't love doing those. So normally in the pattern, you start with a temporary cast on, you knit this way, and then when you're done, you come back, pick up all of these stitches, and you add this little picot bind off at that point, because you're binding off the stitches to get these cute little end points. So I just chose a cast on that would create the same picot edge, just as a picot cast on. And then the other end will match when I'm ready to bind off with it. And I think it will be fine. It's plenty stretchy, and I think will block out with no problems. So Just did that little alteration to make it more what I like. So loving this, plan to try to get this finished up here in the month of August. Even though it was technically a summer box, these colors just scream fall to me. So I will be happy to wear this once the cooler weather comes as like a big, generous scarf slash shawl. Another nice pattern from Woolenberry. I like her patterns. They're very straightforward and not difficult to do. Like this one doesn't have any shaping in it at all. It's just repeating the pattern over and over. So you get really comfortable with it and can maybe not zip through it, but you can knit it fairly quickly. So that is the big project that I'm working on right now. And then the other project that, other two projects that I'm working on right now are socks. I have been participating in the Crazy Sock Ladies Summer Sock Camp 2022, which has been very fun. I've really enjoyed knitting socks, and so much so that I've decided I'm going to do kind of a personal challenge going forward. I'm going to knit a set of 26 pairs of socks following patterns from A to Z. So hold that thought in your head. We're going to talk about that in a minute after we talk about these basic self-striping socks that I'm working on right now. Let me get the ball band out. So this is Desert Vista Dye Works, who's right next door to us in Arizona. And this is her Viso sock base in the colorway Monkey Wrench. And it is a lot of very bright, cheery colors. They're kind of neon pops of color with black included in that palette. So I have sock number 1 finished. I'm doing this with 64 stitch leg circumference and a 1x1 twisted rib. And I've added in a Fish Lips Kiss heel in black. I have a little mini skein left. It's left over, actually. It's not a true mini skein. Just plain black that I thought looked great with the heel addition here. And then just a very typical rounded toe. So sock 1 is done. And then I have sock 2 where I've gotten the leg done and I've added the heel and I am ready to cruise on down the leg. I'm knitting these using US 1, the 2.25 millimeter version. And I'm knitting these on 2 short circulars, which is one of my favorite ways to knit socks. So these are just working on stash that I've got. So, I mean, nothing crazy exciting or whatever, but very fun. Very fun. Give you guys a close-up of those colors. So that is pair number 1 of the socks that I'm working on. Pair number 2. This is the first sock set that I'm doing for the Socks A to Z challenge that I've put together for myself. And I can get the ball label out. I am using a sock set from Mama Jess. She has an Etsy store. And it is the Summer Sock Camp 2022 colorway with the contrast color of greener grass. And so here is the main color, which is a light, very light speckle. And actually, when you see the socks, I'm kind of surprised because this looks like it has a lot, it keeps getting blown out, a lot of white in it, which it does, and just some very light flecks. Here's the contrast color, which really is that bright. It's a very, very bright spring green. but the socks have way more speckles in them, which I think is fun. There's the front and the back. So these are the Altitude socks by Helen Stewart, who is Curious Handmade. I can't remember if this was Secret Sock Society 3 or Secret Sock Society 4, but at any rate, it's available on Ravelry, and I will link to it below. So I've finished the leg on these. I'm ready to start the heel for sock number 1, and I'll be working on that this week. So yeah, these are really fun. I am enjoying them. Oh, same exact needles. The one US size 1, 2.25, 2 sets of short circulars. Yeah, so this will be, A is for Altitude for my socks. The other thing I'm going to add down below is I am no longer running my Instagram business account. It is still open, but I don't post to it. So I have a new Yarny-based Instagram account called Knit One Spin Two, which I will put a link to in the box below, as well as my Instagram book account and my Instagram cross stitch account. So you guys can find me there if you're so inclined. Okay, done with that. Next, yeah, because I needed another yarn-based hobby, I taught myself to crochet over this span of time. I had very, 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 very limited crochet skills. Like I could put a single crochet edging on a knit sweater kind of thing. But I worked up one small pattern that was a baby blanket size that has already been gifted. And then I also decided to start a big blanket project. So here is where I am on this. It is not done, by the way. This is like maybe at the halfway point. So this is the Beach Walk blanket. The designer is Wool Thread Paint. And she has all kinds of great patterns in her Etsy shop. I am using Stylecraft DK and Stylecraft Batik for this, and basically following the pattern's color selection, which is what drew me to the design in the first place. Just tons and tons of color in it. Let's see. So it starts in the center with this kind of 9 patch with the white background. So you assemble that first, and then it's the light gray set of granny squares, this mini granny circle, set of just granny stripes, and I've just finished this big set of granny squares, and I'm working on the next. There's one more set of stripes out here on the border. So once I get that done, I have another set of these mini grannies that goes out here, and then there's another border to finish it off of these bigger granny squares to finish it up. And I love the colors in it. That's what drew me to the pattern. So it's going to be kind of like a 2-person sized blanket that you could sit 2 people under on the couch. You can see it's already decently sized. So I am working on that slowly but surely. Not sure. I don't necessarily have a deadline for when I'm going to finish all of it, but I'm working on it in bits and bobs. That was a fun new thing to know. I've been enjoying crocheting, and I find I can't like sit and crochet the same way I can sit and knit. It bothers my wrists, so I do bits and bobs of it. And for a project that size, it's kind of nice to do some, make some progress, put it down, come back to it. So working on that. Lastly, let's talk about spinning. I am currently spinning a Doctor Who inspired braid from Oceanwind Knits called Next Stop Everywhere. It was from her February 2016 club, which tells you how long it has been marinating in stash. This is the fiber. I've split it into little bird's nests to spin off of, but you can get an idea of the colors. This is a superwash organic merino, obviously hand dyed, hand paint. And I have the first bobbin spun up for the singles, and I'm working on bobbin 2, and then I will apply them together. 4 ounces total of this. So there's two ounces on this bobbin, 2 will be on the other one, and probably will be in a fingering weight when it's done, a 2-ply fingering weight. So yeah, kind of fun. And then finally, I have one yarn acquisition to share with you guys this go around. This is the, I want to say August color sock set colorway from Hugh Loco. She is a dyer up in Colorado. This is on her Phyllis sock base, which is the 75 superwash merino, 25% nylon. And the colorway is Nouveau, which is got lots of pinks, a little green in it, this dark slate gray again, which is what the contrast skein is. So 460 yards, 100 grams in the main skein, and then this is a little 20-gram skein that you can use for heels and toes, or haven't decided yet what I'm going to make with these. I think the colorway might be too busy for much more than pretty plain socks, but we'll see. Since I'm on a sock knitting kick, it may be socks at some point. But there's also enough here to do like a single skein shawl with a contrast border or contrast stripe somewhere in it. So, and again, I will link patterns, yarns, all that good stuff, yarn shop, all that below in the show notes so you guys can find folks if you're interested in them. So that's going to be it for knitting and crocheting. I don't want this video to be super long, so I'm going to try to move fairly briskly, and again, we'll see how it goes. But let's move on, and we're going to talk about books next. So I've been doing a lot of reading as well, as you probably might guess. I only have 2 books to talk about today because I don't want to, well, actually 3. I brought 2 books to show you, and 1 book is an audiobook I'm listening to on my morning walks. Let's start with the one that I just finished. This was a birthday present from my friend Christina, who knows me very well. The book is Changeling by Molly Harper. So this is a middle grade book, and it has a lot of sort of Harry Potter-ish type tones in it. The main character is this young woman who works as a servant for a family who has magic, and technically the servant class in this society does not have magic. It's sort of vaguely 1880s Britain-ish, but not specifically called out as Britain, but that's sort of the vibe behind it. Anyway, Sarah is a servant in the house, but it turns out that she has magical abilities. And so the mistress of the house decides to pass her off, and I should say she has a lot of magical powers. The mistress of the house decides to pass her off as a long-lost relative, sends her to school where she gets trained up and makes some found family type friends. Really fun magical system. There are houses, but it's not like school houses, not like Gryffindor and Slytherin. It's each of the families kind of has their own house, if you will, and each house has certain things that are affinities for them. So the mistress of the house that she works in, her affinity is herbalism. So that's fun because there's all kinds of gardens and interesting herbal type plants. And the main character, who they are calling Cassandra, so they've given her a false name. She's not necessarily exceptional at herbalism, but she is kind of a talented witch all across. And there's an ancient book that the school is the repository for, and the book chooses her as the translator of it. And so the book contains all kinds of spells that have been lost in history and require a translator to unlock. And she's the first translator in 145 years, something like that. So she is a young witch with great powers who has been given this important duty, but she also kind of doesn't know where she fits in. So there's a little of that sort of Harry Potter feel to it, where she's trying to figure out who she is, who her friends are, who's being friendly to her just because they want something from her, and how to control her magic. I think this book is listed as maybe young adult, but I would say it's more middle grade. The main character is 14 during the book. It's, I think, perfectly suitable for anyone maybe age 10 or 12 and up. I mean, I enjoyed it. So it was an entertaining read regardless of the age level, but there's nothing particularly scary, violent in it. There's a revenant who comes back from the dead, so that's kind of borderline for maybe really young kids. There's otherwise not really violence and no sex, so I would definitely recommend it. I was going to say middle grade, 10, 12, 14 would be perfect for it. Or if you're just interested in an entertaining read with another great magic system, this is a good one. I hear that this is the first in a series, although it doesn't feel like the first in a series. It's not one of the books that has a cliffhanger at the end of it. The door is left open for more plot, and I understand that the author is working on book 2, which should be great. I really enjoyed this book, so a good read. The other book, which I have just started, is The Birth of Venus by Sarah Dunant. This one is set in Florence. The young woman in question is an artist. She wants to be an artist. Her parents obviously just want to make a good match for her. And the book kind of follows her path as she moves through Italian society and hones her craft. Eventually she ends up in a nunnery. I'm not very far along. This is, I think I'm only like 50 pages in, not even 30 pages in. So I just started this one last night. A child of the Renaissance with a precocious mind and a talent for drawing, Alessandra is intoxicated by the artist's abilities, this artist who her father has hired to do a family portrait. So she becomes an artist in her own right, but kind of by losing the support of her family. The book starts with her death in a nunnery, which is very interesting and very engaging and drew me into the story completely. If you've read this book, which has been out a while, you'll know what I'm talking about. So an historical fiction, but one that kind of brings to life the 15th century in Florence with the Medicis, Savonarola. All that history is included in here. So I'm really looking forward to getting further into this book, but this is one, my dad recommended it, which usually means I'm going to love it. And then this was also one of the ones that my Book of the Month Club sent me. So I've liked everything they've sent me except one. which I liked but had a really hard time getting through because it was about Russia during the time that the initial attacks on that theater were happening this past spring in the Ukraine. Anyway, tangent. Sorry about that. Anyway, this is what I'm currently reading. The other book that I'm currently reading is called The Summer Queen, and it is a history of Eleanor of Aquitaine. It's the first in a trilogy, which I didn't realize when I started it, but I kind of think I know where the author's dividing stuff up. So there's the Summer Queen, the Autumn Queen, and the Winter Queen. The Summer Queen follows Eleanor from just before she's 13, where her father, the Duke of Aquitaine, has died, and she has come into her role as the eldest surviving child as the Duchess of Aquitaine. And she realizes that in his will, her father has given her care, her guardianship, to King Louis of France, who decides, fantastic, we'll marry her off to my son. And so that starts kind of the process by which Eleanor becomes Queen of France when she's, they think, around 13, the age of 13. So the book is going to cover Eleanor from age about 13 to about age 28. So she has become, I only have a few hours left in it. It's a very long audiobook. I think it's 13 and a half hours. I have like 4 hours left. So I'm 3/4 of the way through. So it talks about Eleanor's marriage to Louis. Then Louis becomes King of France and she becomes Queen of France. His back and forth sort of love-hate relationship with the church and how that pulls her in. Their time where they go on crusade to Jerusalem. That's a huge part of the story and in this particular section of her life. Their return back to France, her inability to bear him a son, although they have 2 daughters, and their annulment. And she has the annulment is just happening where I am in the book. And she has also just recently met Henry of Anjou, who becomes Henry II of England, and who she eventually marries. So I'm sure that the next book will be her time where she marries Henry and goes overseas. I don't have book 2. I don't have the Autumn Queen, but I will probably pick it up at some point in the near future. There's a ton of historical research in this book, and I've been really, really enjoying it. It's very meaty. It's got a lot of interesting things in it, and just the whole information about Antioch and Jerusalem and the Turks and that sort of crescent of civilization, if you will, where they go on pilgrimage, has been very interesting to kind of understand some of the politics that I was less familiar with. And then, of course, to understand how the French and others, it was also the Germans who went on this crusade, how they fit into the larger political atmosphere there. So quite a good read. Again, I'll be linking everything down below in the show notes for y'all, and I'll let you know my final thoughts on that once I finish it up. So that's going to do us for books, and our last little segment is going to be on cross stitch. So let's move on to that. So cross stitch, I can't remember really where I was with what I've shown you or not shown you. Again, we're going to just jump right in and move forward. So I just finally got a piece that was a finished object framed. Let's see if I can do this without the glare. There we go. This is Mirabilia's Trick or Treat Fairy. I stitched this on Color and Cotton's Antique Peach, the 32 count linen, using called for threads and beads and all that good stuff. And just picked this up from the framer last week. If you guys can see that, it's got kind of a floral type border, and my frame shop said, because I had looked at a bunch of different frames, I wanted something that looked kind of antiqued and dark to go with the dark colors in her dress. They suggested that I actually add this little metallic, it's like a mini frame on the interior, which I had never seen before. I mean, I've seen frames that have that, but this is actually a separate thing. It's not part of this frame because this frame looked really, I liked it, but it looked very plain. It didn't look like quite enough for what the vibe I was going for. So anyway, it's just kind of a burnished, antiqued gold metal. And then the frame itself. I just think it gives it a nice little extra finish. So anyway, I have this. I can hang it on my wall for the fall, which I am so ready for here. It cannot come soon enough. It's just been hot and nasty here. But anyway, so this is a fully finished version, ready to hang and move on with. So excited to have that. So as I mentioned at the beginning of all of our talk time together, I've really become a monogamous stitcher. I have less time to stitch than I used to. Things like socks, you know, I can have on a Zoom call and just like plain sock knit around and around and around. I cannot do that with cross stitch, especially not the pieces I've got. They're just too big and too complex. You know, there's something I have to be able to focus on. So what I have been focusing on is my chatelaine, which is the Desert Mandala. And I am happy to say that I am in the home stretch on this one. So like I said, you guys get to slog along with me to finish it up. Everything above here is done except for the really big crystals, which I will add at the end because I didn't want to roll them into the frame. This corner is completely done. I have some beads to put in here, but I am ready to start this bottom motif, and there is a landscape above it. So that is my task for this week. That's what I plan on working on with this. I am stitching this on, I think it's 28 count even weave Lugana from, it's been so long, y'all, I can't even remember. I know the color is Calypso, and I'm pretty sure it's hand dyed by Stephanie. Pretty sure. So what I have left to do, you can see the border here, which matches over here. So I need to bring that down and do this corner come across. So I have that to do. There's the vignette, she calls it the nature corner. So I have another different one to do over here. I can't remember which this one is. It's the Roadrunner. So I have the Roadrunner left to do on this side. So the cactus and whatever plants are in that one, right? And the feathers. And then this sunset happens over here with the Roadrunner in it. I need to bring down the border and come across with the borders. I have this, which is a cow's skull, and then this, which is another landscape. So yeah, it's still a lot, and it is slow progress because if you've worked on a chatelaine, you know it's a ton of detail, which is what makes it amazing, but which also makes it not a fast stitch, and it's big. But I am more than 2/3 of the way done. I mean, maybe even at the 75% mark-ish. So what I'm going to work on this week is trying to get this section in, get the border done. I'd also like to map the border out for the landscape so I can keep working this way. And I'm going to put the beads in across here. So let me give you a little close-up of that. You can see I've got the beads done on this side, I think, maybe sort of. And then I need to add them down here. The scorpion is almost all beads. And then the beetle right here is mostly beads too. So that is where I am on this huge project. I love it. I can't wait to have it done. I kind of already have a frame in mind for how I want to finish it. I mean, obviously still a ways to go. I did go through kind of based on how much I am able to get done in a week and kind of map things out. And I'm 99% sure I can have this done by the end of the year, maybe even a little bit before. I did budget a month for all of the big crystals that are from here up that I still need to add. You can see down here. These happen to be like octagonal ones, but I have square ones to add and some other kind of bigger tile shaped ones that will go on this as well. So that's where I am with this project. Expect to see that pretty much every time I record, whenever that might be. Again, not gonna like set myself up with the pressure saying, oh, I'm gonna record every single week or whenever. I will just try to get into some kind of cadence and figure out what's gonna work for my current reality, the world that we live in now. But it has been great to catch up with you all. I am delighted to be back here doing some podcasts. And so again, if you are a returning viewer and you've stuck with me and come back to see what I'm talking about today, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And let's see how things work out. Let's see how the cadence of my schedule works and what I can fit in. But anyway, delighted to be back, friends, and good to see you all. And I hope that you all have been safe and well and weathering our crazy world storms as best you can over the last 18 months or so. And so while I won't say for sure when I'll be back, I will be back at some point and move on with the next set of projects. So until then, thank you all for listening and watching, and I hope you have a great remainder of your August wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.